And welcome back after this fantastic trailer. It's probably one of my favorite trailers because I am very much interested in the story and cinematics as well. And I'm very excited to have two guests here now with me to talk about just that. So first of all, we have Leah Talbot, Associate Lead Narrative Designer. Leah, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Leah Talbot. So I've been working at Funcom for about 2 years now. And before that, I worked for a couple of years at Ubisoft, same in narrative. This is behind me now. I'm very happy to be working on Dune.
Oh, we're happy to have you. Stole you away. Very happy to have you. And then also we have Nils Ryborg here, who is a producer for character narrative and cinematics as well. So he has lots to talk to us about as well. Nils?
A little bit of everything. Hello, I'm Nils. I've been with Funcom for, I think, 5 years now? Something like that?
Probably.
Hard to keep track. For this, I worked at Paradox Interactive, also stolen away by the greedy Norwegians, but very happy to be
sorry,
here.
Not sorry. Yes, so talking about the story, of course, we also have to talk about
The
alternative timeline. Yes, and it's a little bit of a edge to walk. It's a bit of a balance for us, of course, because we want to talk about story narrative, but also we don't want to spoil anything. That would be a shame. Mm-hmm. But Leah, talk to us about the alternate timeline.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. If you haven't seen some of the cinematics yet, basically you will be exploring the universe of Dune as you already know it. However, as opposed to the story of the books or the movies that you all already know, this version of the Dune universe is a bit different because of one
a little
big...
A little bit.
Just a tad.
Just a little bit. A little bit different.
Oh, yes, a little bit different because of one major event, one choice that Jessica made to bear a daughter instead of a boy. So there is no Paul in this timeline of ours. So this, in turn, allowed Jessica to be rewarded with training as a truth-sayer by the Bene Gesserit, the order to which she belongs. And this knowledge has allowed her to see through Dr. Yue's deception. And this is how the Atreides were warned ahead of time of what was going to happen. And they managed to survive the battle of Arrakeen. So in our timeline, Duke Leto is alive, the Atreides are still around, and the Harkonnen as well, because they are not giving up on Arrakis. They are very set on claiming the planet back. And this is basically where we start up in the game. We are stuck in a universe where those two houses are still embroiled in a long war, a very long conflict. And this is basically where we are launching the players. So you'll be meeting a lot of the characters that you already know. Some of them are still alive, like, Peter de Vries, who wasn't killed at the beginning of the story.
Minor spoiler.
Very minor. But the whole Harkonnen house is around, so, well.
So there's a lot of characters that you can actually meet that might not be around otherwise. But also there was a specific decision why we actually did that, right? Maybe Nils, you can comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So really everything with this alternate timeline is built around the idea that we need to get some kind of player agency into the game, right? So people familiar with the books or with the movies know that Paul, inevitably becomes the Kwisatz Haderach. He gains the ability to see the future as it's going to unfold. And for people who are fans of the later books, they know how he also kind of gets trapped in the future. He cannot fully change it. He simply knows that it's going to happen, right? Now, in any video game, it should be a little bit more about the player and a little bit less about, the big kind of main story person who isn't you. It would kind of suck if all the decisions that you go in and try and make don't really amount to anything because everything is already predetermined, right? So getting rid of Paul gives us the ability to have a story that is actually more dynamic. Suddenly, who you ally yourself with and the people you choose to help or not to help, it can all kind of have an actual real impact on the story, right? And it's been really interesting because it's also kind of changed how we work with the with the IP holders, for instance, right? So we work with the Herbert estate, of course, to kind of go through everything story related, make sure everything's signed off and happy. But our conversations, due to this choice, become much more frequently about like what are the natural consequences of the world that's been created from Paul not existing, as opposed to just being like, hey, is this in the book? Yes, no. So it's been more dynamic, much more lively, which has been a really exciting way of working with an IP.
It's also nice that we got that stamp of approval from the Herberts as well, right? So not people got to say like, well, they just did whatever they wanted, which is not the case really, because we did kind of throw it back as well, and there is reasons for that change that are very important for the game as a whole.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting, right? To kind of get in and delve into the world where, like Leia was mentioning, right? Like we've got characters like Peter DeVries or Duncan Idaho who are still around. They're not dead. Spoiler. In our version of the game, and so you get the opportunity to potentially meet and talk to some of them.
Also, talking about meeting people that you do not necessarily have to know the Dune universe, right? Like you can still jump into the game and it will still be interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, we are, for all the Dune fans out there, we pay very close attention to the lore. Obviously, writing something, an alternate timeline, is not basically a creative license to do whatever we want. So we stay faithful to Frank's books in particular, but for the whole, to the whole canon in general. And for the newcomers, the people who don't know Dune, who maybe just only watched the movie when it came out, this is a game that they can perfectly pick up, no problem. We introduce a lot of the concepts ourselves, obviously, when they become relevant. Otherwise, the player will just get to explore the world and learn about all those things by themselves. And so they shouldn't be scared of playing this game. They will be welcomed with open arms.
So we can say that we have actually, especially for the survival game genre, which we're not only a survival game, but for the survival game genre, we have a very important and really laid out and thought through story, including like cinematics and full voiceovers and everything. So do you have to play through the story, or I'm pretty sure people will?
So, like most games, we have an introduction, which is basically the main story, telling you how to play the game. Basically, a big tutorial teaching you how to survive on Arrakis. You will need some guidance, let me tell you. This is not an easy task. And the main story is there in the beginning to guide you a little bit and help you get your bearings in this very hostile world. But then past a certain point, when you've acquired all the schematics that you need, you basically don't have to follow the main story if this is not your thing, if you are just a hardcore survival player. Yeah, I agree, obviously. I think you absolutely should play the main story. I think it's great. I think it's a lot of fun. It's full of surprises and little twists.
Oh, I agree,
so
yes.
Please do play it.
Especially if you want to know what your role is in this whole world. I think it's very interesting to play through the story. But it's nice that you have the option to choose, because if you're not that interested in story-driven, in the story-driven part of the game, you don't have to later on, which I also think is nice for people who really are not interested in. But again, do it. Like really, you will regret it if you don't. Just let me put that out there. But anyway, talking about main story, are there other narrative or story elements that you can experience in the game?
Yes, of course.
As if I didn't know the answer.
No, I mean, exactly. But it's like, of course, we're making a survival game. It's not necessarily a genre that is like super focused on storytelling normally, but we're also working with the Dune IP. And it would be such a waste not to make full use of it, right? Like 100%. This is a very personal and political and philosophical IP, and we try and really emulate that in a lot of the both gameplay choices, but also in the story choices, right? So like was already mentioning, part of the way we tutorialize you into kind of how to survive on Arrakis, it's kind of driven both through gameplay and story kind of intermingling. You need to do a bit of story in order to get to the game. You need to do a bit of game to get into the story, right? And we continue kind of with this philosophy for most things. Like survival is not something that you do entirely on your own. Humans have never really done that, right? And so other people will be involved, other characters. And the second you have characters involved, drama, stories kind of naturally unfold. One of the things, for instance, story-wise, that you can get into is, at the start of the game, you pick what your background is. Where are you from? Who are you? Who is your mentor? Right? Who your mentor is decides what your starting ability is. But unlike certain MMOs, we're not really class-based. You're not locked into like, I am this person. You have the ability to learn really anything from most of the great schools, which is, in my opinion, really cool. But if you want to learn the kind of the weirding ways of the Bene Gesserit, or kind of how to be a sword master, or anything of that kind, if you're familiar with the IP, you'll know like these are skills that are difficult to acquire. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. If you want to learn them, you're going to need a teacher, a trainer. And if you want someone to invest that kind of time in you, you need to convince them that you're worth their time, right? So we've got storylines revolving around, Bene Gesserit, sword masters, mentats, and so on, existing on Arrakis that you need to track down, find, convince that you are worthy of their time, and help them out a bit. Maybe they'll help you out.
And those are not just like side quests or so, they're also like, I was kind of blown away, just throwing that out there, because I'm a swordmaster. As some of you might know who saw the combat stream, I love swordmaster. And when I had to go out and actually work on getting kind of my faction up, so to speak, with the advanced swordmaster, I was surprised. There was like fully voiced cinematics coming my way. So that was actually pretty cool. I mean, they're not super long, so don't get worried that you have to sit through like hours of cinematics or so, but I thought that was very cool. I have to say, like, again, I was very surprised about that specifically.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're kind of passionate about is characters having a purpose, right? So even with the launch offering of the game, we're not going to be done with some of these characters just with launch. You will see some of these becoming a recurring cast over the future as well.
Exciting. So, Leah, some other things that we can expect, story and narrative-wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's still an open world game. As such, it doesn't just have the main story. It has, as Nils mentioned, a lot of different content, side quests, people you meet, factions you'll encounter. This is a world that is in turmoil, that is always off balance. There is no like big power keeping all of these people in order. So there's a bit of a power vacuum. So there's a lot going on in this world, and we make sure to pack it with a lot of content and a lot of lore. We have the CommuniNet, for example, which is the local radio. We have a bunch of different channels playing Atreides or Harkonnen propaganda, and those are very fun to listen to while you're mining away, surviving, sweating, dying in the desert, being eaten by a worm. Well, at least you'll be seen.
Not so much fun.
By the voice of on the other side of the radio.
Yeah, talking about the CommuniNet, or also we discussed, of course, the fully voiced little cinematics as well that you get, like during the Swordmaster or Mentor questline specifically. We just recently did release the first episode of 5 Days at Carthage, which is also exciting because it actually tells you a little bit about the background of the world as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, so I mean, as with any developer of any game, right, like we're very passionate about the stories and the lore that we built up. But of course, not everybody's interested in going around and reading every little text snippet that you put into the game. At some point, it becomes a bit tedious. We understand that as well, right? And Fighters of Carthag, fun little radio play on the Harvester Guild radio, is a kind of a fun way of helping introduce a little bit of that backstory, right? So, like we were mentioning before, this is a game, this is a world where the Atreides and the Harkonnen are in an active conflict. Now, people familiar with the map of Arrakis know that Carthag, which is the Harkonnen kind of stronghold, and Arrakeen, which is where the Atreides are based out of, they're way too close together for these conflicts to kind of really feel good and natural. So for pragmatic reasons, Carthag kind of needed to go. And so Carthag's been destroyed. They're building a new Carthag a bit further away, which is really cool. And there's, of course, a bunch of story explaining how this all happened. And with Fighters of Carthag, you get the officially approved by the Empire story of what happened.
Officially approved.
They've gone through
might
every...
or might not be.
Well, I wouldn't comment on that. That would be spoiler territory.
Don't get any soda cars my way. Yeah, don't send the soda cars my way. But so one thing that I personally think is very exciting. So it also goes a little bit into the trailer, because when I first heard some of the segments for some of the cinematics of one of the characters that was also featured in the trailer, I was like, I know that voice. I knew it because I played. Oh, I'm actually just touching my microphone. Apologies to the viewers. I recognized immediately that's Reinhardt from Overwatch. And then I saw also, like, when we actually released the story trailer, there were so many comments on YouTube as well. I was like, that's what is his name, Valkyrian or something? Yeah, but the Destiny 2 character Valkyrian, I think, or something. Anyway, I haven't played Destiny 2 that much, but there were so many people recognizing the Paul immediately. And besides him, which has an absolutely fantastic voice, we have quite a lot of voice actors. I mean, we have a huge cast of amazing voice actors, and there's just a few that, yes, absolutely. And there's a few in there that are very easily recognizable. One of them, I think she is actually in 5 Days of Carthag, is I again remember Symmetra from Overwatch.
Anjali Bhimani,
yes, exactly.
She's fantastic. She does a really good job in that play, and overall, the whole cast we've been working with has been fantastic. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of them already.
Kitten. I'm sorry, that's also a little bit, it's not a spoiler, it's just like part of one of the cinematics we're getting.
Yeah, I mean, people who played the closed beta will be familiar with who this character is. Yes. I will not go into spoiler territory, but it's voiced by the wonderful Mara Junot, who... any session.
Evelyn from League of Legends.
Yes, she does a fantastic job on that one as well. I think she's been in a couple of different things.
Absolutely
God of War,
fantastic.
Arrakeen,
Yeah, tons.
all
Pretty much all those voice actors have a huge. So we are very fortunate and very.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel very privileged to have these voice actors in game. One last one I want to mention though, which is actually. He was part of one of my favorite game series ever, and he voiced one of my favorite game characters ever in Mass Effect. Garrus.
Yes.
Renan Keener, he's fantastic. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything.
No, please
but,
don't.
People who are a fan of the Atreides will get very well acquainted with his character.
Yes.
I think someone might be willing to spoil a bit more. I'm looking over at Leia if she wants to.
Yes, because when you come to like one of the first trade posts, you there's a really cool cinematics. I don't want to spoil that either. But there's a very cool little cinematic between an Atreides rep and a Harkonnen rep that he might or might not be part of. Who knows? But anyway, talking about that, Leah, talk about the factions a little bit and how they.
Yeah, as we've mentioned before, the Atreides and the Harkonnen are still around. They are kind of the big, iconic houses of Dune, so they had to be here, obviously. And you, as a player, had to be able to join them if you want. Of course, all of this is optional, but still, you can try to tip the scale a little bit in favor of one of these houses, which again are embroiled in this long, exhausting war. It's been 10 years, so we are 10 years after the Battle of Arrakeen. That's when we start the game. So it's been quite a long time, and both houses have exhausted a lot of their resources. They are tired. They want a way out. And what you're going to explore in Arrakis, that's basically war-torn. That's been really shaped by this war. And you, as a player, you will be able to pick a side. So you won't be able to play both sides. Sorry. So, well, let's say that the choice doesn't have to be permanent if you don't want it to be, but betrayal has consequences.
There
and
will be
that's
consequences.
all I'm going to say about this.
Yes, but I think also another thing that is probably for you as narrative designer and storytellers is very interesting, that we do have both factions still on the planet, because it gives you more time to also explore their, what drives them, what are their ambitions, and also maybe that things are not always as black and white as some people might think, right, Nils?
I mean, like Leah was mentioning, right? Like it's been 10 years. They've been going at this for a decade. People familiar with the kind of original books will know that it wasn't just that the House Harkonnen themselves decided that they just wanted to get rid of the Atreides. There were larger forces at play, and that is still the case, kind of in the lead up to our story. I mean, the Emperor kind of didn't really want the Duke around. He was a bit of a threat, right? Now, in our version of the story, the Atreides kind of survived that assault, which puts the Emperor in a very awkward situation, which is why he's kind of forced this war to be allowed, quote unquote, right? It distracts everybody. They're fighting each other. But now the Harkonnen are stuck in a long war. They're exhausting all their resources, and the Atreides, they're kind of forced into a world where, like, hey, I can't just be the honorable kind of white knight all the time. I'm stuck in a decade-long war. Sometimes they're going to make choices that are not as pretty as they would like, and with enough time, reality starts to set in. Like you don't come out of a war unscathed. You'll get to explore a lot of kind of the effects of a long war and kind of how it's affected both of the sides as you get into the early mid parts of the game and then throughout it afterwards. So look forward to it. We put a ton of effort into it, and we're very excited.
Yeah. And maybe it's, as we mentioned, always so black and white in regards to who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. Maybe the things are kind of grey and...
I'll let you guys decide.
Yes, we'll see. Well, I'm still a Harkonnen. Anyway, yeah, see, like, high five. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I think that's a good point, because we actually ended with the factions, and we're gonna go soon into our next segment, which also which will also include the Landsrat. So we'll discuss factions again there. But before we do that, Leah, Nils, thank you so much for making time for us and for chatting with me about the story and the narrative. I hope that future players are really excited, and that some of you who might not be that interested in story normally will just still give it a go, because I really do feel it is worth it. It's fun. There is some really cool voice actors. There's some really great cinematics, fully voiced, even in the smaller part, like we just discussed, like the mentor storylines, side quests and things. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to. All right, before we jump into the next segment,